Bonjour mon ami, it is me, the Bee, and welcome back to another review. So today, I will be looking at 2002's adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo, directed by Kevin Reynolds and starring Jesus Christ, aka Jim Caviezel, Dagmara Damazeric, Guy Pearce, and Albus Dumbledore himself, Richard Harris. Okay, so first and foremost, who doesn't love a good revenge film? Honestly, who doesn't love a film about an eye for an eye, my arm for yours, I'm gonna kick your ass because you did me wrong? There is something so satisfying about seeing a good revenge film, and that is because we as humans understand the notion of it. A lot of human history has been built on retribution, on revenge, on paying somebody back in blood. Whether it be wars, terrorist attacks, business takeovers, people's dicks being cut off, like that Babbitt chick. I'm sorry, I'm getting way off track here. What I'm trying to say is this. Revenge is something we all understand because it is something we know inherently. Whether it be a slightful comment on your Facebook to somebody killing your dog, we feel that sense of fire for paying back that slight against us. We want to see somebody who has wronged us suffer. And that is perhaps one of the most basest of human emotions that we can feel, and that is probably why the concept of revenge has been put on cinema, on film, for so long and so many times. Now, Alexandre Dumas' novel, The Count of Monte Cristo, that is perhaps one of the finest examples of revenge put on the page. But in saying so, even though the character of Edmond Dantes, who has been majorly wrong throughout the entire film, even though his grandiose scheme of revenge and getting back at the people who wronged him is completely justified, this book does not glorify it. What happens is this. For every single action Dantes takes, there is a consequence, and this consequence weighs heavily on Dantes' soul. The Count of Monte Cristo is not about necessarily condoning the notion of revenge, but it's about understanding it and letting the reader know that whatever you do, whatever blood you get on your hands will not be washed off, no matter how much you try. So going back to the movie, let me get this straight. I like this film. When I first saw it, as an impressionable, stupid 20-something, I really, really enjoyed it. And that is what got me into the book. That is what actually made me read the novel. And in that sense, that is why this film is successful. It gets you into the world of the characters. It gets you into the mindset of Edmond Dantes and the cowardly Fernand and Mercedes, who is Dantes' wife. This is a film that not only sort of works as somewhat of a character study, but it's also a really good swashbuckler movie. When you think about it, when was the last time the swashbuckler was a huge drawing feature in cinema? Not since the 1930s, with Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland and Basil Rathbone and all those people, Douglas Fairbanks. When a particular genre long thought dead comes back with a vengeance, no pun intended, it's always a wonderful surprise. And when it is based on a classical work of literature, and when it is able to introduce this new generation into this world, into these characters and into this book, that is a damn good thing. And this film is full of wonderful action, sword fights, fist fights, wonderful set pieces. The Count of Monte Cristo is not only well acted by the principal players, obviously, given the nature of the cast, but it's a very good looking film. It understands the grammar of action cinema, and it is basically immersive if you love yourself a great period action adventure. But in saying that, this film is also somewhat problematic. The reason why I feel this is so is at the end of the film, let me put it this way, and I'm not going to give away too much of the book here. Edmond Dantes gets his revenge, but he does not feel the long-term satisfaction he thought he would. And when he realizes that even though he has destroyed the lives of the people who destroyed his, he's also thoroughly decimated other people other people's lives that he didn't necessarily anticipate. We're talking about the family of the people who he initially set out revenge for. People he never even really thought about, who weren't necessarily part of his plan. When he realizes that he has destroyed these people, he has killed them or whatever, it weighs so heavily on his conscience, and it stays with him. And the most horrifying thing is this: even though he understands it, even though, he knows what he's doing is wrong, that he's hurting basically innocent people by proxy, it doesn't discourage him. At the end of the book, he knows that he has gone too far and too long with this notion of retribution. And in saying this, the end of the film is a happy ending. Edmond Dantes gets the girl, he gets everything back. He gets absolutely everything he lost. And there is no sense of long-term consequence with this guy, okay? He is completely blameless at the end of the film. And, that's probably thanks in no small part to the fact that the movie doesn't necessarily deviate too far into the source material. It's 2.5, or rather 2 hours or so long, so obviously you can't do a fully fledged and fully faithful adaptation of the book. But in saying that, as somebody who really took to heart the true message of the source material of the book, when I look back on this film with this notion, with this knowledge, it doesn't have the same impact it should have, Jim Caviezel makes for a very vulnerable and sensitive lead. You go from this frightened mouse of a man to this mighty source of revenge. When he breaks out of jail, when he travels with these pirates and gets this treasure that builds up his enormous wealth, and when he comes back as a man of capital and of so-called virtue, it is such an empowering moment. And seeing Jim Caviezel get out of a hot air balloon with his robes flowing about him, it is a very powerful picture, because you have seen Edmund just evolve as a character. Well, at least superficially speaking. But yeah, it's I hate sounding like a fuddy-duddy, I really do, but this film isn't as good as I originally thought it was. But in saying that, if you can look at The Count of Monte Cristo as a standalone action-adventure film, completely forsaking the source material, it stands quite admirably. Like I said, it looks beautiful, the action is fantastic, the acting is pretty damn good, and it's but look, Kevin Reynolds has a really good eye for directing films, and prior to this he directed Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And say what you want about Kevin Costner's quasi-British American accent, it's still a very good film, thanks in no small part to Alan Rickman, may God rest his soul, as the Sheriff of Nottingham. That movie stands on its own 2 feet because of the fact it has a sense of identity and a sense of humour and originality. But with The Count of Monte Cristo, it's kind of difficult to reconcile here, because you were talking about revenge. You were talking about Death Wish back in the 17th century, okay? And it's a problematic sort of film, but it doesn't make it bad. As long as you can accept the fact that it is not a faithful adaptation of Dumas' work, you will like it perfectly fine. So I give The Count of Monte Cristo a 3.5 out of 5, still very solid, still a lot of fun, and by God, the costuming in this movie is amazing. Oh my God, there is so much detail in this film that it is so difficult to hate it. Yeah, that out of the way, I am tremendously sorry for wasting your time, but I say definitely give this film a go. And if you have read the book, and if you are particularly puritanical about it, avoid it. You probably won't enjoy it as much as somebody who has not read the novel, or as somebody who isn't hard up on the crucial details. But even so, The Count of Monte Cristo 2002 is a damn good time. Count on action. Count on action. I completely screwed that up. Thanks for listening to me ramble, guys, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.